and that number will grow quite significantly as we progress. So let's make a start then. First of all, good morning to all of you. And some of you maybe good afternoon, because I was looking at some of the enrollments where people have actually signed up from. So good morning and good afternoon. Please let us know where you're from within the chat itself. Really would appreciate that. If you can let us know who you are and what part of the world you are from in the chat, would be really great. And also if you can give a shout out to your company, would also be wonderful as well. So we can see the array of companies that are involved. And a little bit of housekeeping, just to make you aware, please switch off your mic. And there's a questions and answers section at the top of the actual page. You can use that for any questions that you may have. You also have the chat section as well, which you can utilize. Now, my name is Dr. Sage Lal. I'm an Innovate consultant working for the Black Country Innovation Services, a project funded by Innovate UK and is actually supported by 5 further education colleges: Wolverhampton, Walsall, Halesowen, Dudley, and South Staffordshire College. And it's really a pleasure to have you at our Masterclass, which is called Top Tips to Transforming Your Workflow with Microsoft 365. So before I go any further, what I would like to do is introduce Sanya to you, able assistant who's in control of all the technology today, and she'll just say a few words and then she'll hand back to me.
Thank you,
Sanya?
Sage. Hello, everyone. I'm Sanya Salman from City of Wolverhampton College and Innovate UK. Thank you for joining us today. So I work alongside Dr. Sage to support local businesses in adopting digital transformation, AI, cybersecurity, and green technologies. And we also organize different events together to show how these technologies can be used in their operations. I'm looking forward to this session today, and I'm sure all of us will learn some useful stuff. Before we proceed, just quickly, I want to talk about some upcoming events. So the first one is the cybersecurity workshop, which is actually due tomorrow, and it will be held at City of Wolverhampton College, Wellington Road campus. So if any of you is based in Wolverhampton, please do join us tomorrow for this workshop. And you can sign up to this QR code. And then the next event is Reimagining Education with AI, which is an online interactive event. It will be held on 27th November, and we'll discuss how AI is reshaping education. We have a fantastic lineup of expert speakers. So I encourage you all to sign up for these events, and I'll also share the link in the chat with you all. And at the end of the session, we'll ask you to complete a feedback form. I'll share the link in the chat. And if you guys have any questions, please do use the Q&A feature, and also use the reaction and the chat feature to make the session more engaging. Thank you so much. I'll hand back to Dr. Sage now.
Thank you very much, Sanya, for that. Excellent in terms of the events that are coming up. And I'm sure this one will prove to be fantastic too. So I think at this stage, I need to say a few words about our guest. So Stephen Taylor is an innovative educator, passionate about helping people maximize digital and edtech learning resources. He has extensive experience in education and the non-profit sector, driving growth and engagement with children, young people, and families. Skilled in digital innovation, networking, teaching, and LMS platforms, such as Blackboard, Canvas, and Moodle. Stephen holds a BSc in biological science, a PGC in secondary science, and is pursuing an MA in digital education. He's also the founder of Games for All and a co-host of the Dungeon Pastors podcast. He speaks at national events and runs a thriving board game community supporting this mission. And oh, by the way, of course, he's a guru of Microsoft 365. Stephen Taylor, thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate it. Just going to hand over to yourself and thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. So I'm just going to share my screen.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing mine.
So for this session, I'm going to go through some top tips to transform your workflow using Microsoft 365. And Sage has already given me a good introduction, but I have got a Who Am I page on there if you want to see more of things I've done previously, which I will share the link in our chat for later on. So in this session, what we're going to have a look at is using Teams to find a place in SharePoint that you can actually start uploading things to. I've always found that having things associated to a SharePoint link to a team is a lot safer for keeping your data where it needs to be. I have been burnt in the past when I helped somebody else build something in their name, in using their Microsoft account, and then they left the company and all of that access disappeared. So it's always better to link it to a team because that's decentralized. It's away from individual users. We're then going to have a look at how we create what's called a SharePoint list, which is a little bit like an Excel document for holding information, but it's saved into SharePoint, so it becomes a lot easier for some of the various tools that Microsoft has to interact with and to utilize. We'll then have a quick look at what automation, reports and apps you can build directly out of lists just using the information that you've got in there. And then I'll go through some examples of things I've created using Power Automate, using Power Apps and using Power BI. So you may never have heard of Power Automate, Power Apps and Power BI. They are part of the Microsoft 365 suite. If you've ever used Dynamics 365 to help you with your customer retention, these are all parts of that package that are available externally from it, as well as inside that Dynamics 365 package for you. So first of all, I'm going to jump over to a team and show you how you get through to SharePoint to actually start creating these things. So this is Teams. It's a bit empty, this one, because it's a test one, so we don't have any posts in there. But you do have posts and files at the top, and this should look the same on almost every instance of Teams. It might look slightly different if you're using class Teams, but there will still be posts and files there available for you to use. So if you click onto Files, obviously when I'm sharing, it decides to go incredibly slowly for us, which is fun. There we go. You actually have quite a few different options here. This is where you can upload any documents, and anybody within the team is able to then access that and see the documents. But the bit that we're interested in is under these three dots here, and we're going to click Open in SharePoint. So this has now opened the SharePoint that is related to that team. A lot of people don't realize, but when you make a team in Microsoft Teams, it creates an entirely new area inside your Microsoft tenancy. So it does get its own SharePoint site. That's how the files are shared amongst it. That's how the conversations are stored. But it does mean you get a lot of extra features if you go into that SharePoint site and have a look at it. You even get a home page that you can modify for that particular team. So if you're working on a particular project, or if you have a team site for your department, you can have a team page, and on here you can have news. So you publish news to your team and they're able to see what's going on. Also, if this was used more frequently, and this is why I've had to roll up a site just to make sure I don't breach any GDPR inadvertently, any files that were recently used would show at the bottom here. So you can actually see what your team are working on, and you can see what you've been working on as well. And it just makes things a lot quicker to access, a lot easier to find. But the bit that we're interested in is under this little new button here, and I'm going to zoom in because I know how small things can sometimes look on team screens. So you've got a button that says New. And when we click that little drop down there, one of the first options that we've got is List. So if I click List, it's then going to ask me, how do I want to start on this? Do I want it to be a list? Do I want it to be a form? Do I want it to be a gallery, a calendar or board? Or do I want to import ones that I've already made? And there are quite a few ones that are there as templates for you to work from. So expense trackers, work trackers, content schedulers, travel requests, all sorts of different things that are already made for you to work from. I do recommend going and having an explore of those. But in this session, unfortunately, I don't have time to go through a comprehensive list on it for you. So what I'm going to do is just create a blank list here. I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to call it test. And then you can decide if you want to show it in the site navigation or not. If you're going to be using your SharePoint a lot, then you possibly do want it in your site navigation. If you're not, then it doesn't matter too much because you can have a direct link into this list whenever you want to and from wherever you want to. So we now have this list available, and by default, you already have one column there, and that's called title as its default thing. This is what is otherwise known as a key field. This has to be unique for every single thing that you populate in there. Because if it is not unique, then it's going to start causing confusion and making things get lost. So you could just have that as a number, or a way that I usually get around it is I put a title and a date and combine them both together. So this title will be example 1 and then today's date, for instance. And that then means we've got that individual part to it, that key information. We can then add columns. And there's lots of different options on what you want to do. So you can have just a single line of text. It's a bit misleading because it just says text, but what it means is a single line of text. It maxes out at about 250 characters if you're using the single line of text. You can have a multiple choice where you select what those choices are going to be. Date and time kind of speaks for itself. Multiple lines of text doesn't have that 250 character limit to it. Person will look at your system that you've got, your Office system, your Microsoft system that's running everything. And you know how in Teams, when you search for somebody, it'll come up with their picture, their name, and some information about their organization. That's what this box brings you as well. We can have a number, yes, no, hyperlink, currency, location, image, all sorts of different things in there. So for this example, I'm just going to put some text in. I'm going to give it the name of forename, single line of text, and save that in there. I'm going to add surname, and I'm going to add, let's go for date of birth. On there. So now I have multiple columns that I can use and populate. I'm just going to zoom out a bit because it's hard for me to navigate when I'm zoomed in this much. So on here, we now have a nice big button saying add new item. And in here, we can now add new items. So title, I want this to be number 1. Forename, let's go for Wednesday. Surname, Adams. And date of birth, it comes out as a nice date of birth picker. And I'm just going to pick sometime last August for it. And then click save. And you can see they've now populated that list. And we can put in lots and lots and lots of data into this list to then create whatever it is we're wanting to create, whatever database we're wanting to create. This is much more of a database than Excel would be because it's already saved online. It's already accessible by all of your cloud. Not that Excel isn't accessible by all your cloud, but SharePoint lists are just, they've got that step up because it's already got it all integrated. And what do I mean by it's already got it all integrated? Well, you may have already noticed along the top here, we've got some options. We've got the ability to create a form. So if I click that forms and click create new form, I can create something that is instantly going to populate this list. When somebody fills it in, it will populate this list for us. So I can add my logo in here if I wanted to. So I put myself in there. Add a form title. I can put new user, for instance. Describe what this form is about. Please enter your details to be registered as a new user. And now I can decide, how do I want this to be laid out? Now, I don't actually want the title field in there because I want to be able to fill that in. But here they're able to put in forename, surname, date of birth. And we can even add new fields to it as well. And on this view as well, we have themes, so you can make it look more how you want it to look. There's even create your own style, so you can pick which background color and theme color you wish for. Now, it's quite limited, obviously. However, it does give you some personalization on there for you. And then when you're ready to go live with it, we can click send form. There is also the option to do branching here as well. So if you've got certain fields that will only be filled in if their date of birth is a certain date, you can click branching and control that. Oh, their forename. If they fill that in, then go to the end of the form, for instance, or go to a different question. So it gives you a lot of freedom in how you build this form very quickly, and you will be directly inputting into your information. When you're ready for it, you can click send form, and then you can copy the link and send it that way. There we go. So that's our forms side of things, and now we can see our forms are here. And we've got various different options that we can do there. So edit it, stop accepting responses. We've got the hyperlink again that you can click to use. Now, in my organization, with this particular type of form, I don't have the option to change it to be anyone can respond. That won't be the same in your organizations. You'll be able to change that to say anyone with the link can respond. However, this form can be quite limiting in what you can do with it. So there is the possibility to create a Microsoft form for it. So if you want to make sure you can definitely get in what you need to get in, if I go over to forms, I'm able to then select a form that I've already made and then use that in order to get my SharePoint list populated. I'll talk you through how we do that later on. But you can see here, I have quite a few different forms here that are actively used, even down to an ethics application portal with 3,000 or so responses so far. But I'll go through how you do that in a little bit. The next thing down our list is automate. So in here, we have a few different options that we can put in place. If we go for some simple ones first and do rules. So if you create a rule, you can decide that when any one of these is done, you can then have it do something. So if a new item is created, always, or if you can put a condition in there if you wish to, always, and then you've got send an email to, enter name or email address, or set the value of something to something. So you'll probably want to send an email to, and then you put in the email of who you want to go. So a new item is created, always send an email to myself. With just a message saying new form submission. So that's a rule that we can put in and have it set up for that. So that's the simplest form of automation that you have there. And you're allowed 15 rules per sheet. So that can do quite a lot if you're wanting to just automate a certain value going in somewhere, or you're wanting to automate people being informed that things have changed. The next thing that you've got is quick steps. So with quick steps, again, you can do predefined actions in your lists. So once you select an item, you can then say, I want you to do something with that information. So for instance, you can draft an email or start a Teams chat. So if I click the draft an email, so show a command that will, for a selected item, draft an email to, and then you put in the email address there for it. and you can say what it is that you want to put in there. So if you have this database set up that you're having to go through and review things and then inform your manager or inform your PR person or inform an engineer, rather than you having to go type out your own email and say, oh, we need help with this, you can click. Sorry, my phone's making a weird noise for me. Bear with me. There we go, sorted. You're able to go in and have that pre-made. So it'll send them information about the thing that you've clicked. And it's just saving you typing anything out. It's saving you messing around with it. So the other thing, start a Teams chat, set a value, and we've got execute flows. So set a value could be a good one. So say you had one that said in progress or completed. Instead of your staff having to go through or yourself having to go through and manually set a load of things to in progress or completed, you could actually have a button that you can just click, and all of the ones that you've selected will then have that change put on them. So it's speeding things up massively for you. And we'll get to flows in a moment. And then the other thing that we've got is approvals. So in this, you can actually add an approval column. And that means that whoever you set as the approver has to give the thumbs up to something before it changes in your form. So that makes life a lot simpler for you doing that. If you have that chain of command where something needs to be checked, you are able to go through and set those approvals. So that's our basic automations that we have in place. I'm just going to check if there's any questions at this point. Bring that up. Doesn't seem to be from what I can see.
No questions at this moment in time.
Yep. Okie dokie. So moving on to the next part of it, we also have this option of integrate. And integrate takes that automate step and goes a little bit further. So we can actually create an app directly off the back of any data that we've got here, of any fields that we've got. So if I click create an app, now there's not much information on here at the moment, so it's not going to be a very complicated form that it's creating, but it's thinking through it. Do I need to leave it, or will it be able to do it in a second? There we go. So when you first go in, it is going to allow you to go through a preview of it and allow you to see how the whole thing works. I'm going to skip this for now because I'm going to show it to you. What this has done for us is made a very simple 3-page app for us, which is looking at the information within that document. So we have the field that we filled in of Wednesday Addams. I'm just going to click play so we can preview it. And you can see we've got different ways that we can view it as well, so you can then see how it will look on different things. So if I want to have a look on Apple iPad Pro, that's what it's going to look like for us on Apple iPad Pro, or Galaxy Tab A7. Or I could say, oh, I want to see what's it going to look like on, I don't know, a Samsung Galaxy phone. It's going to look like this if it's horizontal for us. We can then see that information, and when you click on it, by default, it's showing you the information in a nice clean way where the other fields, the other rows, aren't getting in the way. So you can see very clearly all of that information. Now, this is a very small bit of information, but you can imagine in something that's more complex, that has multiple moving parts to it, has multiple columns, this will probably be a lot easier to read than it would be in that traditional Excel table format. You're able to see the information a lot simpler. It also comes by default with a little edit button. So you can edit this item And now you're able to go in and change these within this app. So this is a really good way of providing information to yourself or your staff in an easier to read, chunked out fashion, where they can work on something, and it's a lot harder with this to accidentally click on the row above or below and change data that you're not meaning to change. So it's a nice clean way of looking at your information. It also comes with a create new item option as well. So if I put in Pugsley Adams, I've been using that, and let's just set his birthday to October, and then click this tick up here. Now we've got another one in there for us to go to, and we're able to click through, and I can see, oh, I spelled Adams wrong, so click on, put the double D in, get rid of one of the M's. And this has become a much easier to use tool than what we had before, for actually getting information in somewhere and being able to read and understand that information. And that's basically what Power Apps does. Power Apps is all powered by these SharePoint lists in the background. And by using those lists, you're able to either create something very simple like this, or it can be more complex. And I will show you a couple of the more complex ideas in a few minutes. So that's our Power Apps view. Also in our Integrate, we have Power BI. Now, Power BI, you might have come across this before or heard of it before. Power BI is a visualizer tool. So it's going to make dashboards and reports for you. So things can become a lot clearer. It can automatically be creating charts and tables and information for you. Now, this particular one isn't necessarily going to make a good Power BI because there's not much information in it. If I click visualize this list, again, it's going to ask me to sign in. So it's, to start with, it does it automatically. It uses a little bit of AI to figure out what might you want to have this on. And you can see it's automatically done a few different things for us straight away. It's used the very limited information that we've got to create how many different ones are there by title, what's the test by forename, it's by surname, by year, and it's also given a little rundown summary on there as well. Now, this is a very small data set for us to use, so it's not going to be an absolutely amazing set of data for us. But as you can probably imagine, the more information that you have, the more interesting this data can come out for you. Now, by default, it's selected count of rows and title for us. I might not want title, I might want surname. And then it's calculated things for us by surname. Or I could say, I want surname and forename. And now it's done those for us. And it's coming up with what it thinks might be the most interesting information for you. It may not be the most interesting information for you, but it may bring out something that you hadn't thought to search for previously. And it's just doing this in a very quick summary for you, a very quick bit of information for you to use. You're then able to go into Edit, and in here you now have a lot more freedom of exactly what you want to do. Lots of different types of charts here, lots of different types of information that you can use. And the beauty with Power BI is it's designed to be relatively easy to use. So if I get rid of this counter test by title and just delete that out and say, right, I want to get another graph in here. I want to do a bar chart. I'm going to drag that into here. It now has all the information that it needs. It's telling you here, it needs something for the y-axis, it needs something for the x-axis. And you can have a legend put in if you want. Small multiples is basically how do you want to group things together. And then tooltips can be added as well. And it is as simple as go into your data set and drag what you want into the y-axis there, and then what you want in your x-axis there. So that's our count of ID by surnames. There's 2 for Adams, so let's put that in there. So I'm going to go back to our test team all teams here. We have a lot of tools that we can use to visualize and to understand this data. So before I go any further, and I'm going to start doing a more deep dive into what you can actually do with these tools. Are there any questions on setting up and using Microsoft, SharePoint lists at all?
Does anyone have any questions? Anything you want to share? No, I think Stephen, we are all good.
Okie dokie then.
You can
So
proceed
now
further.
I'll do a dive into the more complicated side of things and what you can actually do with this toolkit. So I'm just going to jump to here and go into Power Automate. So this is the website that you find when you first go to Power Automate through your Microsoft Tools site. So if you didn't know about this already, there is a website that you can go to called office.com. And with office.com, you can sign in using your work account. And in my organization, it's been set up to have Copilot Chat as the default page for it. This may not be the default page for you. There might be an apps page for you instead. And you can see there are a lot of different apps available that you can use. And you will probably have different ones from what I have. I'll have different ones from what you have. But when you click on all apps, you can see all the different ones that you have access to in your organization. And the one that I'm wanting to go for today is Power Automate. And then that brings you through to this page. And if you have Copilot turned on, again at your admin settings, you are able to describe in here, what do you want to have automated? Now, it wants you to be as specific as you can. So it's got information like here, every month, copy all files from one OneDrive folder to another OneDrive folder. Or I want to be able to copy all those from an Excel file to another Excel file with one click of a button. Or when a new item is created in SharePoint, send me an email. So you're able to put in detail what you want to happen there. There's also lots of pre-existing templates that you can use. And these cover a vast array of things. So you can search for what specific thing you're looking for, and it will be there. There will probably be something already set up for you that will do whatever it is that you want it to do. And it can go from very simple things to more complex levels as well. So for instance, one that I use a lot, if I go into my flows, it thinks about it. I've got one that when a new email arrives, send me a message about it in Teams, because I don't like having Outlook and Teams open, both giving me notifications at the same time. I prefer to get it all through one place. So with this automation, so what it's set to do, when a new email arrives and it's looking at my inbox, post a message into a chat or channel. And what this is doing is giving me quite a few tools to make it look the way I want it to look. So I currently have it, it says you have a new email in your inbox. So this is what it's going to tell me. And this is who it's going to me. And it's going to send me a message saying you have a new email in your inbox from. And now I actually have the ability, using this little lightning bolt symbol here, So I always like to say it's a lightning bolt because it's like Harry Potter, it's magic. So hit that lightning bolt, and now I have various bits of information that I can put in. Now, by default, it's only showing me a handful of that information, but there is the ability to see 34 options. And when I click on that, there's a lot of information that we can bring in on there. So, who's it from? Who's it to? Who's the CC recipient? Am I a BCC recipient? What's a preview of the body of the message? That's what I use currently, because if you try to put the whole body in, that can crash the system entirely. But a preview is the first couple of paragraphs. So then you know at a glance what it's about. But you can see there's all sorts of different information in there that I can pull in. And I've got it to tell me who's it from, what's the subject, the title of the email, and give me a preview of the body. So at a glance, whilst I'm working in Teams, I can make that decision. Do I need to go and look at that email right away? Or can I leave it for a bit and then go and check it later? So it makes life a lot similar for us. So that's a very simple flow that we've got. Now, to show you some more in-depth ones that we have in place. So if I go for Japanese test, this is always a good one to show. Obviously, working in an educational environment, we have students who are wanting to do languages, and we need to find out what their prior knowledge is so we can determine what level of support they should get. So for this, we have a form. If I just go to my forms, I can show you what it looks like. So students write in their surname, their first name, their student number, and the degree that they're studying. And then they do a self-assessment. So if they've never learnt Japanese before, this just ends at that point. They've not learnt it before, so they're going to be at grade 1. So they don't need to do the rest of the form. So that's where that branching comes in that I was showing earlier. So if they select no, it goes to the end of the form. But if they select yes, they go on to the next option. They then select the option that best reflects their level and then have some multiple choice questions to answer in Japanese so we can see what is their knowledge of this particular language. Can they read the language? Can they use it in sentences effectively? We also have a writing part, and then we have a speaking part where they have to record it. So when a new response is submitted to that form, so you can see it's quite a convoluted form ID there, but every time that you make a form, it does have that ID in its web address at the top. So it says ID equals, and that's the unique code. Remember, we were talking about unique key codes earlier. That's the unique code for that form. And what we want it to do, we want this automation to look, has something new been submitted to that form? Yes, it has. Right, get the information from it. And again, we've got this lightning bolt and we can say, bring in the information from that response. So if a new response had been submitted and it was response number 4056, this would go get the response details from 4056. Then what we've got is it asks that question of have they done it before or not. If they haven't done it before, it just ends it. It adds them into an Excel table for us, sends an email to the student and the relevant member of staff saying you're going to be doing grade 1 Japanese, and then it ends the flow. That's our terminate there. Otherwise, and this is where we start getting into the more complex side of it, This is now looking at each individual question. So question 7, that's the response that they gave to question 7. Is it equal to the right answer? And if it is equal to the right answer, give them a mark. And we go through 30 or so questions doing that to then decide, have they answered enough of these questions correctly? And then adds it into a table for us. So it's going to put in to a specific Excel spreadsheet, and it's saying where it's living. And this again is why having teams are important, because this is going to a specific team, our language master team. So it goes into there, so we know where it is, we know it's safe, we can access it quite easily. And it's going to fill in with what's that response ID, that 4056 we said before. What's their name, first name and surname? What degree are they doing? What's the date that they submitted it? Have they learnt Japanese before? So lots of information going into there for them. We then take it a step further. So it may be you're used to having information come in that you put into an Excel spreadsheet, and then you manually go through it all and decide what you're going to put in. And you need to remember to go and check that spreadsheet regularly, or you need to remember to go and check that SharePoint list regularly to make sure you're not missing anything. This step, this approval step, means that you are going to get a notification about it. So instead of you having to recall that you have this spreadsheet that you need to check every day to see if there's something new, you are going to get informed that there is something new. Not only are you going to get informed that there's something new, you're going to get some buttons to click to make your decision straight away within that email that you get sent. So if we have a look at this create an approval, I've got this one as custom responses, and the tutor needs to give one response. And in here we have 8 different options from grade 1 through 7, and one that is select a different elective. And it might be select a different elective if they clearly know Japanese inside and out, they're a Japanese national, so there's no real point to them studying a Japanese course. So we might say, well, go and pick something else to do instead, because you're not going to learn anything from us doing this. So we've got grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 through there. And this is where this automate tool, hopefully you'll be able to see how this comes to shine from that. So in here, I've been able to put in their student number and their name and say their responses were, and these stars just mean that it comes out in bold when it's in the email. And it goes student number, degree, self-assessment responses, score, and then all of those multiple choice questions written as if they've put their response in the sentence. So it becomes a lot easier for the staff member at a glance to know whether it's making sense or not. And again, these stars either side mean that it's going to be in bold, so it stands out in the sentence. We have their written essay in there as well, and it puts in their submission. And then their spoken part, we put the hyperlink as a clickable thing. This then gets emailed to the staff member. They've got all that information in the email, so they can just read through it all, and then they select the grade. And that's all they have to do, because the system then itself will go and update the particular row that was created earlier and say what level are they on and were any comments left by the assessor when they gave that level. So hopefully you can see that this is going to start opening up things that you can do in your business. So you're not having to be chasing people as much. You're not having to be remembering to go and check a file. You can have the file inform you personally that something needs to change. And you can set up, well, what exactly do I want those things to be? And this is entirely in what's called low code. So I've not needed to know any coding in order to write this out. I've just been putting in effectively just if statements So if this response, and it doesn't look like that's ordinarily, that's because I've not looked at it recently, but when you click there, you can see it's telling you what the questions are. And when we click see more, you can actually see each of them there for us. So you're not just having to guess, you're not having to know what body R045 is. It does actually have the answer for you there. And then you
Stephen, yeah,
yes, of
brilliant,
course.
Stephen, really, really good. I just
Yep.
want to check if in the Q&A and there's a question that came up
Right.
earlier before we leave it too far
Yes,
behind.
let's have a look. So in Q&A, there we go.
Posted it in there. Should be
Can you combine lists of related but separate data in Power BI? Yes, you can. And again, this is where that key information comes so vital, because as long as you've got a key that links your tables together, so if every one of your users has a unique ID, if every part of your data set has a unique ID, as long as that's referenced in each table, you can now link those together. It's basically what Power BI is an Excel pivot table on steroids. Because what it's doing is it's allowing you to take data from any source. So it doesn't have to be within that Excel spreadsheet. It can be in any source whatsoever and pull it together to make something that makes sense, that can be used. And I'll show you an example of that in a little bit. There was also a thing in the chat as well. Yes, if you are automating sending emails, you do have to be very careful as to who that email is going to and what that email contains. So that's why if you're creating forms and things that are going to be automating things, I'd always advise going as granular as possible with your questions, because then you're able to decide, right, I want this bit of information to come out of it, but I don't want that bit of information. And as you're writing it, you're able to say, right, I want this bit in there, I want that bit in there, and you can ignore the more personal bits. What's also good in this is you can set it to reply to the person who submitted the form in the first place and identify them by the name that they've given you. So you're getting that personalization in there as well, because it's allowing you to go, dear, and then you select the first name response. You recently contacted us about, and you put in the topic response, and then say, don't worry, this has gone into our systems and it's going to be checked by our staff soon, and that can be sent to that end user. So they're getting that personalized response by you immediately. They're not having to wait. They're not just getting a generic email saying we've received it. No, it's a little bit more personalized. Which, whilst it is still automated, it is still it does still mean that somebody hasn't necessarily looked at that yet. It's probably going to make your customer feel a little bit happier. And to be fair, a lot of your customer retention management systems will do that by default as well. But sometimes you're wanting to create things that your CRMs can't do or don't have the capacity to ask a question in exactly the way you want to ask it. And that's when you would be using these. So to give you an example of a very, very complex one, if I just go into here, whenever you're doing a degree, when you come to doing your dissertation, particularly in masters, when you come into your dissertations, you need to be able to say ethically, you have done everything that you can to ensure that things are kept above board. And if you can't, before you even start, cover all of those ethical parts, then we as an organisation can't endorse you. We can't help you go on and do that. So we have an ethics approval process. And previously, what this involved was a lot of paper going back and forth between various people and getting lost and having to be rewritten and messed around with. What we've done is we have created a list, a SharePoint list, where that ethics approval form response goes, and then it has multiple levels of approval running from the back of that. So in this particular one, we can see, I'm going to zoom out because there's a lot to this one. But we have, when they submit their form, get the details, send an email, and this is where I was saying about personalization. In this particular one, we haven't personalized it, but we could. So it says, dear student, but I could, in this bit here, a little box has come up at the side here, and I can search for your name. So dear rule student, your name. And that will put in whatever they put in that box. So it's that bit more personalized on there. I says, thank you for submitting it. We're going to be in touch. So that gets them that immediate feedback saying that, yes, what you have submitted has been received. It's gone into our system. It then goes through a lot of different bits. It's getting user profiles. So if this is all for internal things, you're able to put emails in that have been provided, and that can find that information that I was talking about before, that when you type into Teams and it comes up with somebody's picture and it comes up with their name and their job title, all of that. That's what this gives us, the user profile one. So what we're doing here is checking that we've been given valid email addresses. Because if the email addresses aren't valid, it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to work. So if it isn't valid, it sends an email to them saying, sorry, you put the wrong details in. We can't actually progress any further. Terminate. Which sounds a little bit harsh, but in the previous system where it was pieces of paper or things written up and emailed to people, if they put the wrong email address in, they would never have known it had gone to the wrong person. They would have never heard anything back. So actually, this is saying, yeah, sorry, you inputted the data wrong. You're going to have to go back and input it again. So we go through all of that system. We fill in a SharePoint list item. So this is creating a SharePoint list item. There we go. So in here we have all their responses put into one of those lists that we said. Each one of these is an individual column that's being filled in. It's then also checking to see if there's any file attachments, and if there are, it's putting them into the correct places in the SharePoint list. So that takes a little bit more coding behind it, but it does allow you to pop it in. There's a lot of guides online about how you can do that. File attachments can be a bit tricky with it, but it's still easier than having to code something completely from scratch. We then give access to that SharePoint list item to the people who need to see it. So the approvers, the module leaders, the course leaders, any particular other staff that have been identified in the email. And they get sent an email saying a new response by the person's name has started the approval flow. And then it's saying whoever's been logged as first approver will have an approval request awaiting their attention. So it's informing people of what's happening at each stage. So instead of it just going to one person for approval, it's telling all the people involved, this has started and it's with somebody. And the reason we have that in place is, what if that somebody's off sick? What if that somebody has been hit by a bus? You know, you need to have something in place that these things don't go missing. So that's why we've got that there. It then sends off an approval. And we've seen those approvals before. And in this one, it's literally approval reject on there. Then off the back of that, we can set a condition to say, if it's approved, well, we'll update the item. And now we'll send it to the next stage for approval. So with ethics applications, you can approve or reject whether in concept it can go ahead or not. And then the module leader or the course leader has to decide, well, is this high risk or low risk? So they get an email with the information, with whatever the response was here attached to it, and says, it's been approved, this was the comments on it, now you decide, is it high or low risk? And again, we then get another condition in there. If it's low risk, brilliant, it can start. If it's high risk, well, now we need another approval, this time going to our committee board to decide whether or not that is something that can go ahead. So, for instance, we had a student who wanted to look into how the Russian prison system affected the mental health of its inmates. And we decided it was far too high risk for one of our students to go visiting Russian gulags in order to do that. That's the sort of thing we're talking about when we're talking about high risk on this. So they had to then change what their approach was. But in this one automation, this one big list of things, we have taken multiple steps and automated it in one thing. So previously, the student would have had to have written something up, go to their tutor, and their tutor would have had to read through it all and approve it, and then tell the student that they'd approved it, and then send it on to another person themselves. And that other person would have had to have known to look in their emails to find this other thing, and then to go through it and look for it, and then sent it off to other people who would then have had to have known to look in their emails for it like that. This instead is doing all of that. It's taking that pressure off the people. All they're having to do is make the decision at the time. Everything else is automatic. So the amount of hours it saves is massive, as you can imagine. I'll be honest, setting up something of this complexity can take a week or so if you don't know what you're doing. I've got it down to about a day to get one of these done. But when you think about it, all the things that you're writing out, all the things that you're adding in there, somebody else would have had to have written those things each time. So a day's work for me means for every single response, there would have been at least a day's work, if not more, by the other staff members. So having that automation there in place has saved countless days. And we saw earlier in the forms there's 3,000 odd responses. So that's 3,000 days worth of work minimum has been saved by one day's work.
That's brilliant. And it's so time saving and efficient. And the best part is that there's no coding required. So anyone without any technical knowledge can start using these apps.
Exactly. They're specifically designed to be low code. So you don't need to know coding. All you need to be able to do is say, right, I know roughly what I want to do.
Yeah.
So if I go to create, I can either create it from a template. So with that, so for instance, emails that you get about a certain something, or automatically schedule a meeting with a message sender, for instance, that one there. It's going to say, right, I need to connect to these things. That's all right. And then I can decide which calendar I want to put it in. Now, I just want to put it in calendar, and then create. And it'll think about it in the background for me. And it's then going to give me bits that I can fill in. So if I go into the edit now, it's done a lot. And you can see there are complicated bits of maths in there going on, where things are a little bit more complex because it's dealing with times, but it's done it for you. It's got all that information there, and you're then able to go in and update this as needed. To say when you want it to happen. So this particular case, it's a manual thing. So they send something through to you, and then you click, do you want to make a meeting with the person or not? And when you click that button, say, I do want to make a meeting, it does all of this, finds the best time for both of you based on when your calendars are free, and automatically creates an event for you. So you don't even need to know what all of this is doing, because it's told you in the template that's what it's up to. So I'm going to delete that one because I don't want to end up automatically making meetings with lots of people. But that's the level of things that you can do. Or you can even go in on your own and say, right, I want to make this from scratch. So what do I want? What do I want to be the trigger? What do I want to be the thing that starts this? So it could be when a new response comes in from a form. It could be when an item's created or modified in SharePoint. It could be when a new file goes into my OneDrive. Could be when an RSS feed of my favorite podcast is updated. You know, all sorts of different, and there's so many different things that you can have in there. If I click show more, it just goes on and on and on and on and on about things that you can use. Now, very important to note, not all of those are free. It will tell you if it's not free, it'll say premium next to it. And that can get expensive very quickly. So, for instance, I don't do anything using Microsoft Word in automations because Word is a premium connector. However, you can, with some messing around with it, get it saved as a PDF. So there are ways around it. It's just very complex to actually get it working the way you exactly want it to. So let's just say we've built one. We're saying we want it from this form. So you say, when it's submitted, it's then going to ask you to pick your form. And there's all the different forms I've got that I can then pick from. Or if I know that ID code, I can copy the ID code and pop it in.
Stephen, can I just interject again? Shall we just go
Yes,
to
of course.
Q&A, see what we've got there before we go any further?
Yep. Let's have a look.
It's all great stuff, by the way.
If a person changes roles, can you replace all use cases of an individual, or do you need to go into each automation separately? So this is one of the challenging ones. It is better to have something set up. That means it's not linked to an individual person. It's something I'm actually working towards with mine at the moment. I've got some of them set up and some of them not. So if I look again at this EAP Flow student, on the side here, I have quite a few different co-owners on there. And you can do that by clicking the share button. And then you can decide who do you want to be your co-owners. And you can put in the people that you want as your co-owners. I'm just so at the moment we've got a few different people in there. And in here, there's embedded connections with connections in use. And this will be saying who it's coming from, who's the person who's got that role. And in this particular one, we have a specialized thing called ITS Web Admin. That's controlling it. So if a certain person leaves, that's okay. There's an email account has been set up specifically, so this will keep going, regardless of whether that person leaves. I don't have that on all of my flows at the moment, unfortunately, because getting that email address connected is something outside of my personal department. So there are some which unfortunately will fall over if I end up leaving. But that's part of the handover process, isn't it, in general? It's also why it's important that you know from your staff what tools have they got set up. Now, it's not impossible to fix this if somebody leaves and it all falls down, because your IT department will be able to get in there and look at it for you and be able to add people to it and be able to change that bit. Let's have a look. What else have we got? Oh, is MS Project integrated enough to allow this automation? Yes, I believe so. Where's the bit that shows you? There is a list somewhere of everything that is connected on there, and they've recently changed how it looks. So finding it is always a fun one. Let's go to templates and see. So if we search for project, so you can create projects in Project Online, in Microsoft Projects there. So when it refers to projects, it's talking about Microsoft Projects there. There's lots of different things available for you in that one. If I just create a random flow, and we click this little plus here, we can then search for different connectors. So there's lots of different connectors there that you can see that can be used. So if I search for project, so lots of different projects tools there. Should be Microsoft Project. There you go, Project Online. That's part of Microsoft Projects there. So you've actually got quite a few different things that you can put in there for it. And this one isn't premium because it doesn't say premium next to it either. So as long as your MS project has Project Online as part of it, you can use that. And again, all of these do require things to be available online, which can be a bit of a fight with it sometimes. Yes, as Nikki has just said in the chat, having that central account that isn't actually a person, but is somebody, an account that will remain, is the way of keeping it safe. If you don't have one of those accounts and you're not able to create one of those accounts, another protective measure I put in place is I share it with teams. So when you've got that share option, you're able to choose a team to share it with. So that's not what I was looking for. Where's the one I was looking for? Shared. That's why all of these say shared with me rather than mine, because I've shared them with everybody. Where's one that I will have done? Will that be it? There we go. So this particular one, I've shared it with a team because, again, what we were talking about before, Teams isn't its own thing. It's built on SharePoint and it's built on groups in SharePoint. So if you share it with whatever their team name is, anyone who is part of that team will now have access to be able to come into this. And that means that if you leave, someone in your team is able to pick it up and modify it to work again. So that puts that protection in for you as well. The other thing from David, the direction of the email, you would have to change that if it wasn't going to a collective inbox. You would have to go in and modify that if people left or changed their roles. So that's Power Automator. That's the one that I use probably the most. As you can see, I've got a lot of different things in there that's used for it. The other parts that we have, if we look at Power Apps. Now, Power Apps, I know when I was going through high school, we used to be taught Access and how to make forms in Microsoft Access. This is basically Microsoft Access, but online. And again, you're not tied to that one database from Microsoft Access. You're able to bring in any databases that you want from multiple different sources. So when we click Create, there's all sorts of different things that you can do. And if we click Start with Data, what's it thinks about it? It's because I've clicked Start with Data on that. That's why it's going slowly. I'll leave that thinking. But basically, it would allow you to pick. There we go. So you can select existing tables, you can connect to external data, or you can create new tables entirely. So you've got lots of different options on how you want to connect those things in. If I go into our apps, there's a few different things that you can do. So a very simple one that I created is a banner creator. So we wanted staff to be able to all have a homogenized this is who we are thing for their students. So here's one here. I've got it to automatically search for whoever's logged in. So it's automatically searched for me because I'm logged in at the moment. And then when I click on my information, and this is that Office 365 users information I talked about in Power Automate, it has my picture, it has my name, it has my job, who my manager level is, and what my job role is. And I can click on there, and then again, I've made it so that then goes into that part for us, and can be used. So, and on the side, I've written in instructions on how you can then go and use that in the way you will, in the way that you want to. Because unfortunately, you can't right click and copy that because of how it's set up. But it does tell you you can cut it out using the snipping tool, and then use that as you wish to. Taking that a step further, I went with a signature creator. So again, similar thing again to what we had before, but this time it's going to populate information down here for us. I can click to include user image, and I can get that signature emailed to me in a format that can be used, or I can copy that and paste it where it needs to be used. Because this, instead of giving me an image, has given me HTML code. And that's what Outlook uses to make its signatures and images work properly. So you've then got very quickly the information that you need. Now, this is still low code, but I needed to know how to write HTML to get this to show the way I wanted it to. So when you're getting down to that sort of level, you do need to know the code of where it's going to, at the very least, so it works the way that you want it to work. Other tools that we've got, hopefully, will this pick up what I've got on? Yes. So we have a peer observation scheme at the university where staff do a session together, each of them fill in a form independently, immediately following, and this collates that information in one place. So they click through and it's pulled through who the observer is, who the teacher is. Now, obviously, I was testing this, so I both observed myself teach and taught at the same time. It's magic, it can happen. But obviously, if there were different people here, then you'd have those two different people there. There's also unique reference. So this was that title thing I was talking about before. For everyone else, what this unique reference automatically populates as is the module code and the date, just next to each other like that. So that gives a unique thing for that module code on that day. And that means both of these staff can fill in the form independently without having to share a keyword between them, as long as they put in the 6-digit module code and the date correctly. It will combine the two of them together in our SharePoint list. And then people are able to click through and they'll have the comments from the observer, the comments from the teacher, and then they can discuss it and make notes. And then when they're done, they can save progress. And they can do that for each of the different things that they're to look at, go through their deeper questions. And then when they're happy with it, there's a big button there to submit to EdDevs. Basically, that's kind of like our teaching quality team. And it'll send it over to them so they can have a look and say, oh yeah, that's a good use of constructive peer assessment there, or oh my gosh, why on earth did you say that to each other? That's horrible. Not that people would be horrible to each other, but you know, it's there. It's just to ensure that there's an eye on it. And all of this is again saved in the background in a SharePoint list, where it can be seen by those EdDevs without them having to come into the app for it. So there's lots of different options that you can do with this, lots of different things. I am currently exploring making that ethics application form a Power App instead of a Microsoft form, because the downside of Microsoft Forms is it doesn't save it. If you navigate away, you've lost whatever it was that you were writing in. So trying to find ways to make things a little bit easier for our students and for our staff. And then the last thing to show is Power BI. Now I'm going to show the desktop app for this one because that gives you the most freedom. And I will temporarily stop sharing my screen just to make sure I've got no GDPR stuff on there. as I open it up, but I want to show you what it can do. So it's just thinking in the background. There we go. There we go. So sharing my screen now. This is giving me a list of course IDs and their names from our various courses that we've got online. I can get rid of some of the filters on there, and then we get a nice long list of all of our courses and course IDs. For this to work, in the background, I have got multiple sets of data coming through. So in here, I have got all of our courses, and I've done some modifications on it to bring in who I need to be where, which staff do I need attached where to it. So this is how it then works a bit like Excel and pivot tables. So I've gone through, here's my table of information. I've then filtered it down because I don't want all of our courses going back to 2020. I just want the ones for 2025. I've then added a conditional column and basically said, based on what text is in here, put the specific librarian next to it for us. Then added a custom column of, that's their role within our system, and then worked through it like that. I've then also done the same for some of our teaching staff. And again, because we've got filters in there, it's not showing at the moment, but it's the same sort of thing. Again, going through and adding that all in. And the source for all of this is a JSON file. So again, in order to get data that you might want to use, and in order to export data in a way that could be used, you may need to know coding. You may need to know bits and pieces. But once you've got that, and you've got it in this system, you don't need to know coding at all, because you've just got buttons that you can click to say, I want to do this, I want to do that. So for instance, on this one, I've been able to just click and filter on there and say, text filters, I only want it if it contains 25. And that's all I needed to do. And you can see there, in this case, I've got, it starts with GB.25 for us. For conditional columns, again, it's done all of that coding at the top, but that's not what I wrote to do it the way I wanted to do. And this is going to take forever to load because it's a huge one, so I do apologize. But basically, it gives a nice little box, and it's just got lines. So there you go. If that column contains that, then put that. If course ID contains this, then put that. And it's the if then, and you can just go through and do hundreds of them if you need to get it to do what you want. And what's good about this is if you change the source, so if you update that file wherever you've got that file, and then you run this again, those rules will still be there, and it will still apply those rules to the data for you. And you're then able to append things together or merge things together based on these unique codes. So we've got two there that are courses and that, and for some reason it's not showing anything. There we go. If I was to go on merge now, it's probably not going to let me do this because the data sets are too similar to one another. But I can say, right, I want to merge based on course ID and course ID. And it's telling me it matches 200 of 200 rows. And do I want to match it all from the first and the matching from second? Or do I want it all from the second and matching on the first? Or do I want everything, regardless of whether they match? Do I want only the matching rows? Do I want rows that are only in the first or rows that are only in the second? And that's going to give me various bits of data that I can then go and use. And we can use this to combine data from hundreds of sources. Now, obviously, I can't show you any of that, annoyingly, because it's all got student data on it. But that is how we connect these things together. I'd take information from our learning management system. I'd take information from our student information system. Can take information from Teams, can take information from various grade sheets that staff have, and bring it all into one place, so it's all reported on in one place, and we can get quite, well, not quite, but very complex data sets off the back of that. So there's 10 minutes left. I'm just going to leave that for question time. If anybody has any particular questions or wants to make any comments. Oh, I've got one from Sanaya. Is it possible to connect Power Automate with non-Microsoft applications? Yes, it is. In that there are a lot of different connectors. Some of them will cost money, but some of them are there.
Thank you for that. And another question from my side is it possible to access Microsoft Power Platform if you're not a part of an organization?
I've not tried, so I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
I know it comes with a Microsoft license, but
365.
I'm not sure which
Yeah,
license
you
it
can.
is, because again, I'm in education and that's different
Mhm.
from organizational ones.
Yeah,
You
that's
can
fine.
get, Sunny, you can explore it in terms of the temporary account. You can check for temporary like usage, but you can't do much with it. So no, you would need to have a Microsoft license in order to do that.
Makes sense.
Okay. Any further
Any further
questions from
questions?
anybody? Okay. Just to clarify, we did cover a lot of information there, and really, oh, I think I've got a question. You can only access. Okay, sorry, no, we've got that already. Okay. In terms of, we've covered lots of information there. I'd just really like to say thank you very much to Stephen for his presentation. That's really great. This was really an awareness session, giving companies the opportunity to understand what is actually possible and what these technologies can actually do. You know, there's a lot of buzzwords out there at the moment in terms of artificial intelligence and automation, and a lot of people get these confused. What these tools allow you to do is implement that automation within your organization. And it does embed artificial intelligence into that as well. I can see some of the messages that are coming through the group, but we're happy to provide further training on this. So if your organization needs to have any further training, you can get in touch with us. We can concentrate on one aspect of that particular training, and we can look at to see how we can offer that to yourselves. So if you're interested in that, please get in touch with us. But really, for me, just really a thank you to everyone for joining us today. The session was on transforming workflows with Microsoft 365. We explored how Teams and SharePoint work together to improve collaboration. We looked at how to create and manage SharePoint lists and how automation through Power Automate and Power Apps and Power BI can simplify processes and turn data into actionable insights. And really a big thank you to our speaker again, to Stephen, for his time. Really, really been grateful for his input and for all of you and your engagement. It was fantastic in all your contributions. And hope you're all leaving with some practical ideas you can take back to your teams, and really have a great day. Steve, do you want to say
Thank you so
anything in
much,
terms of
everyone, for
final words
joining.
from anybody? Sonny, I know you've got a few words there. Steve, you want to say anything finally?
Just
I'll leave the final words with yourself.
Thank you for coming along, and I hope it has been useful. I know it's been very much information just dump, but with these things, until you've seen what it can do, until you know what it can do, you don't know it exists. So hopefully it gives you a starting point to now go, oh, I can go and explore that.
Yeah, most definitely. I like one of the comments Petra just mentioned. He's my wizard friend. Petra, he's our wizard friend as well now. He's everyone's wizard friend. So definitely, really a capable guy, and really enjoyed the session. Thank you very much. We'll end the recording there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Ending recording. Yeah, Stephen, thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. Really, that was a good session.